Hi everyone, welcome. This is the Succeeding in CS Intro to CS workshop. Like I mentioned before, if you haven't joined the Discord, please do. Please sign into the meeting, scan this QR code, go on the link tree. If you are watching this on YouTube, you do not need to sign in. This is just for the people who are physically here right now, either in person or on Zoom. So for just a couple of minutes, we're going to have Ryan from HackUCF present something, a little proposal or a little thing that people can get involved in. If you want to go ahead and come up here, Ryan, and just speak for a moment.
I am Ryan. I am part of HackUCF. Recently, we've been given a lot of hardware graciously by Lockheed Martin. And essentially what we're doing is we're building up a VM cluster infrastructure. We're building everything from scratch. So we're building front-end website by scratch. We're building up Hyper-V in the back-end PowerShell. We've put together an alpha release over the past 5 months, and we're scheduled to launch a beta soon. Essentially, it's just a platform where we can have members go on and create virtual computers, access it from wherever. That way, you know, they want to participate in a workshop or something, they don't have to install software on their computer or create a virtual machine on their computer. It's just right there for them to access. We have a bunch of different operating systems people can choose from. We even have a web console built into it. And I'm here to look for people who would like to get involved. If you know or want to learn any of those following technologies, you can reach out to me. That's my handle in Discord and all those 3 Discords, and I'll be here after the meeting to answer questions if anyone has them. In particular, if anyone knows JavaScript or front-end JavaScript, please, and they want to be involved, come talk to me. We need the JavaScript people because we've only got like 4 or so people now. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Okay, so quick thing, if you want to get more involved in our organization, you can come to our operations meetings. They are every Sunday at 8 p.m. They happen on Zoom. You can also give yourself the operations role on Discord. If you go into our bot spam channel under the off topic category and do /roles add, you'll be able to get pinged whenever we're doing our announcements for the operations meetings. You can also join a team because we're organizing our hackathon that's happening later this year. If you scroll down a link tree a little bit, you'll see a general operations interest form. So you can definitely fill that out if you want to play a bigger role in the organization, get some organizational and leadership skills through joining operations. It's a really nice team. I'm in it. So thank you guys so much for going to operations if you do. You can find the link on the link tree. Shell Hacks. So Shell Hacks has extended their hackathon registrations. It is closing soon. They have not said when it's going to close, but if you have not applied yet and you want to go, you definitely should. It's happening next weekend. So definitely apply as soon as you can. It's definitely a great way to, if you've never done a hackathon before, Shell Hacks is an amazing first hackathon to go to. It is fully virtual. It is FIU's hackathon. So please go and register if you'd like to go. Upcoming workshops. So Avery, do you want to, there he is. So Avery is going to talk about our upcoming workshops for a moment.
Hey everyone, I'm Avery. I'm the workshops director for this academic year. And I just want to quickly go over just workshops that we have lined up, just like this one. So on September 23rd, we're doing just getting into the tech industry. Dylan's going to cover a little bit about that in his workshop, but we're going to go like super specific into it next week, covering like how to get into research, the stories that we have of how we got into our internships and stuff like that. September 30th, we're doing Intro to Github, which is like a really useful tool if you're going to be in software development. And it can be confusing at first, and I really want other people to have this resource that I didn't have in the beginning. Yeah, and then October 7th, we're doing Intro to Typescript, which is just a Microsoft-based language, developed language. And yeah, we're just going to be talking about that. And lastly, a new one that I just added today actually is just Intro to Computer Vision. We're going to be implementing a CNN using Keras, which is just to get introduced to computer vision as like a concept, and we're actually going to be doing a project with that as well. So I think that's it for now.
Cool. Thank you, Avery. All right, next up. So we are voting on the budget today. So okay, let me just try it out. There we go. That's almost. Yeah, that works. Okay, so this is our budget proposal for fall 2021. We do need to do a budget every semester that OSI requires. So I'm just going to go over kind of like the main gist of our budget. So the current balance in our bank account is just under 13K. And then we have some money to be deposited. And so for this semester, we have allocated $500 to projects. So this is if they need any hardware Any hardware to do projects this semester? Dev team has 100 just in case. They shouldn't need that much, but it's just to maintain our infrastructure and our websites, Cloudflare, Namecheap, etc. Social media has 500 in case when you're doing any promotional giveaways, things of that nature. Physical marketing 500. This is the banners, the stickers, the pens, all the nice stuff you would like to get whenever you were tabling or stuff like that. Food. So we would like to start giving you guys pizza and food at every meeting, including maybe this one and possibly the projects one tomorrow. Projects that will start hopefully next Friday. We're still waiting on the room reservation for that. And $300 just for miscellaneous club expenses. And then we need to ship out the last 2 years worth of shirts. Now that pandemic is over, we can start distributing them. So that is $2,000. So just under 6K being spent this semester, and we'll still have. That's less than half of what's currently in the account. So if you are an active student member, which means if you have paid dues if you have paid dues, please go on our link tree to vote on the budget. This is a QR code for that. We're only, while you guys do that, we're just going to continue on the presentation. But, does anyone have any questions about this budget or any concerns? What's up? How do you pay your dues? So we are going to cover dues in the next couple slides. It is $10 for the academic year. Is that the next slide? Okay, actually, I will skip to that now just to answer your question. So yeah, you can go to nighthacks.org/membership to fill out the form first that you need before you pay dues. Then you can pay dues at nighthacks.org/dues, Cash App $nighthacks. You can scan this QR code if you just want to do that really quick. You do get a Nighthacks t-shirt. You do get to participate in projects and mentorship. You get to run for a director or officer position, and you get to be able to vote in our elections. Any other questions on the budget specifically? Yes.
The link. You put it on the link tree?
Is it on the link tree? Did you try refreshing?
I found it. Oh, it is? Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah, we have someone managing the link tree right now.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, let me check chat real quick. Let's see. Can we yes, you can pay dues in person. So in a couple of minutes, we'll open it up for Karan. He's right here. He is our treasurer to take dues in person. And if you are on the Zoom call, you can pay in person at the next meeting you come to. All right, so everyone, if you can please vote or just fill out the form saying any other questions on the budget. Okay, sounds good. So then projects program. So projects, we had our interest meeting yesterday for projects, and the applications for the projects program are due this Monday, 9/9. Isn't that the 20th? I think it's the 20th. So this Monday, the 20th at 11:59 p.m. That is a deadline for our projects program. If you want to really get that semester-long hackathon experience, an idea you really want to explore or make a project or pick from one of the project's proposals that were given yesterday at the interest meeting. That form is also on the link tree, nighthacks.org/linktree. The application deadline is on Monday by midnight. Mentorship program deadline for that one is actually the day before Sunday. So this is for you to get paired with someone who can help you achieve your goals or to gain leadership experience and coaching by being a mentor. So you can be a mentor or a mentee. The deadline is this Sunday. And let me see if I can that's better. Okay. And so you can get help with interview prep, resume building, school tips, interpersonal skills, and tech skills. You can make a meaningful connection. Again, this is on the link tree. Tomorrow, we will be having a movie night. We will be watching The Matrix. That is tomorrow at 6 p.m. We'll probably be starting up the movie at 6:30, but we'll open the doors right at 6 p.m. It is in HEC 101. And looking forward to seeing you guys there. Any questions on that for anything? Okay, so yeah, join us tomorrow on HEC 101 at 6 p.m. Membership and dues. So like I mentioned, fill out the form at nighthacks.org/membership. $10 dues for the year. Does anyone who is physically present would like to pay dues with cash right now? 1, 2, 3. Okay, if you don't mind coming up to Karan right here just to take care of that really quick. There's a couple more slides left, but it should be okay. And let's see. Rob, do you want to come up to talk about the constitutional amendment that's happening next meeting?
Yeah, just briefly. So our organization, like many others, has a constitution. In order to amend it, there's a specific process we need to go through. One of the things we need to do prior to having an amendment is to announce what the amendment is going to be, like one meeting in advance so that people can discuss it and think about what it is and all of that. So an amendment that we wanted to introduce that we thought was fairly urgent for this year was basically a quorum amendment. One issue we had last semester is we had lots of people who paid dues and were officially members on paper, but then a good chunk of them didn't necessarily show up to meetings where there were important votes being called. And because of the language in our constitution, like if we had 100 members and 50 showed up to vote, like nothing could pass because you need at least 51 people to vote for it, even if a bunch of people were in attendance. So basically, this language is taken from Hackett UCF's constitution. It's a way to get around that. It's made it through OSI. And this is, we basically want to be able to say, we're going to say, okay, this amendment's coming up. If you're interested in voting on this, show up at the meeting. If not, that's okay, but just know that this could pass if you're not there. So with that being said, that event amendment will be voted on by all active student members next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. All right. And NIHACS 2021, our hackathon, it is happening November 12th to 14th of this year. Please keep an eye on announcements for when the registration comes out. We do have various workshops that are both beginner centered and advanced. So there's just a lot to do at this hackathon. There's a project building, there is the workshops, there is the connections you can make, there is connecting with our sponsors, they're there to recruit you. So overall, it's just an amazing event that everyone should come out to as soon and apply as soon as registrations come out. You can connect with us on any of these platforms: Discord, Instagram, Twitter, Linktree, YouTube. Just nighthacks.org/the platform and it'll get you there. And the Linktree has all of this. So is there any other questions in the meantime? All right, so with that, there's nothing else, right? No, there's nothing else. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to hand it over to Dylan Skelly, our previous president, to do his talk on succeeding in CS. Okay, quick question in the chat. For the mentee program, will we get an email when we get a mentor? Yes. So there's going to be a reception, like a little kickoff event for mentorship, and you will receive plenty of notification about that. So just keep an eye on your email and you'll be fine. All right, so all right, passing it off to Dylan. Thank you guys.
How's it going, everybody? I know Harold said if anyone wants to pay dues, they can. So if anyone wants to pay dues before I start talking, you can go ahead. I can wait for you. So that's totally fine. Just so everyone knows too, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. So if anyone knows how to file taxes in here, you can write this off, this membership due on your taxes. So, and you also get a t-shirt. So the t-shirt's basically free. Okay, so that's a super common misconception. We are two different clubs, Hackett UCF, and Ryan can tell me if I'm watching this, but Hackett UCF is more focused on cybersecurity, while NIHACS is more focused on hacking in the sense of building something or building something new or hacking technologies together. So that's kind of like the distinction there. Hackathons aren't necessarily cybersecurity competitions. You could have a cybersecurity project, but it's more just hacking things together and building things, whereas they're more hacking as in let's hack into this thing.
You can think of hackathons as just like a really fast-paced environment where you're just trying to find creative, unique, and innovative solutions to problems. So you're just working for a whole weekend. It's really fast-paced. It's really exciting. So that's how they define hacking in regards to hackathons. So, and an important thing about hackathons too is that when you're going through your interviews, or you're talking to a recruiter and you're able to talk about your experience at a hackathon, every single tech recruiter that you will ever speak to will know what a hackathon is. They know what a hackathon is and they know how important they are. That's why they sponsor them a lot. Our sponsors know, of course, what a hackathon is. So if you're able to talk up an experience at a hackathon, that's a lot of bonus points for your interview and going forward for internships and full-time offers.
All right, so I'll probably just get started. Hopefully it's not too much noise coming from people paying dues, so I'm sure that won't be a problem. So I know that the marketing material said that this was how to succeed in CS, and then another one was like an intro to CS. I went with getting ahead in computer science because I probably can't tell you how to succeed. I don't know if there's like a secret to it. If there is, I would love to know it because it's hard. And it's more just a matter of working hard. So I definitely don't want to give the illusion that I'm going to give you something and you're just going to go do it and things are going to work out perfectly. The real purpose of this presentation is for me to give you resources and tools that I've kind of come in contact with during my time at UCF that maybe you could leverage too and get ahead in the computer science degree. So just to check, how many people here are a freshman or a sophomore? Okay, that's awesome. And also how many people here are a major in computer science? Okay, so a lot. Probably would have been a better question, who isn't? So I'll just get started here. My name's Dylan. I'm a senior at UCF. I've interned at Microsoft, HubSpot, Constant Contact, at a couple other places. And I used to be the president and the treasurer of Night Hacks in past semesters and whatnot. This is our first in-person workshop post-COVID times. I think that we're in post-COVID times right now. So super exciting to just be back here and be given the first workshop. So the first thing is the purpose. Why are we here? And really, it's to figure out what paths are there in computer science, what resources are there, how can you get a job in computer science after you graduate, and how can I learn this? I know the job part specifically and how to break into the tech industry is going to be addressed in next week's workshop, and they're going to go a lot deeper. This is a 10,000-foot overview of all those things. So hopefully, especially considering how many freshmen and sophomore there are here, this will be valuable for all of you. So first, the question becomes like, what is computer science? Like, if we want to get ahead in it, it's probably good to have a good understanding of what we're trying to do here. Does anyone want to give their definition? Could be anything. Nobody. Rob, what do you think it is?
Using computers to solve problems.
Okay. That is computer science. That is like a definition of it. Unless I have any other takers, I'm going to hop over to this video right now. And we're going to see what Facebook thinks computer science is. If I could figure out how to get to that tab. Got it.
Computer science is the art of teaching a computer what to do. I'll start with something similar, like a screwdriver is a tool that is made to kind of turn screws, and on its own, it's useless. You have to take it in your hand and kind of turn it to make something happen.
A computer actually learns a set of instructions and actually transform that into a way of showing a movie or playing an audio file or delivering Facebook. And that whole study of how the computer thinks is computer science.
It's code, and so code is a bunch of symbols and letters, but it's really more like a language.
I got here from Puerto Rico, and I didn't know English, so I had to spend a lot of time trying to perfect my English. Programmers do the same thing. They learn new languages to do new things. They are inputting this language and these instructions into the computer so the computer can do what they want them to do.
Growing up, I was one of the very few people who had access to a computer around me. And I remember being bored one day and I picked up this book that was near the computer that said basic programming. And they had this really simple getting started, a hello world program that you could write in BASIC. And I remember writing it and recognizing that, wait, hold on, I just put this thing in and taught this computer how to do that, and it came back out. And I had my brother come in and use it. And he's like, oh man, you made the computer say hello? It's like, yeah, I did. Isn't that cool?
In our everyday lives, you speak language and you use that to communicate and instruct when you're around people. Similarly, a programming language is exactly the same thing. It's just a language that you'd use to talk to the computer.
And think about the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning. Let's say it's an alarm clock. There are instructions that somebody put into that alarm clock to teach it how to tell time, how to respond to you hitting the snooze button. You're walking out the house and you jump in your car and you start it. There are lots of computers in there figuring out how to turn the engine the very first time, how much gas to put in. This set of instructions that people have put into all these little devices you've used throughout your day just made your day that much easier to get through.
You want directions, or you're dialing a phone number, you're actually interacting with a computer to solve the problem at hand. That's computer science and programming right there, every day, in your hand.
Programming and computer science is one of the best ways to have impact in the world. There is no other career, no other field where you can touch so many people's lives with just a simple software or a simple app. And it's specifically also important for diverse communities to be involved because of the fact that computers are everywhere, programming is everywhere, and we want an equal representation when we are building programs.
We need people who have a broad range of perspectives to find different solutions.
Creating products for the people, you need to be the people. And if we hope to have products out there that really serve our needs, we need to be involved. Programming, learning computer science, and being part of the creation process of this new wave of innovation.
All right, I've never used a setup like this before, so sorry if I seem like a total amateur. Harold is much better. Okay, so basically that kind of came across the really recruitery video from Facebook, but also it was a great description of what computer science is, which I was really wanted to include it. There's a reason why a lot of people that don't major in computer science come out to NIHACS meetings, and it's because it's synonymous with so many different things that we interact with on our everyday lives. You know, so many different things rely on computers nowadays, and we're part of a generation where we grew up with the internet, and it's just part of our daily lives. When during COVID, we were stuck inside, and that was how we learned. That was how we went about our daily routines. So definitely, it's really exciting. And no matter if you're a computer science major or you aren't, things that computer science isn't include something that happens in a vacuum. You work with large teams. You develop software in large teams, and it's like I'm going to show you later. There's so many different paths, and you have to work with these different teams to be able to come to create these kind of solutions and whatnot. So okay, someone has to unmute on the Zoom. Someone has to mute the Zoom. Not a problem. How can I learn and get experience in computer science? Okay, a lot of people are freshmen, sophomores, probably don't know very much. I was an undecided business major my freshman year, so I know how it feels to know nothing. So definitely try to assess where you're at and see what could I learn? Do I have computer? Do I know anything about coding? If not, that's a great place to start. Just learn a language. You know, or if you're further along, you know, maybe you're a junior, you're a senior, you could decide, okay, here are some of the things that I liked. Let me dig deeper on them. Let me do some personal projects in them. You know, these are great ways that you could begin moving along in your career. And I don't talk about the CS curriculum as much here because those are things that aren't really going to differentiate you from other people. Doing well in your classes is great, but there's so many opportunities outside of the class and so many things that you can learn that will actually be the things that you do when you go into your job. So hopping into personal projects, the cool thing about computer science is that you can use all of the tools that people use in industry at home, at school, wherever. These are like open source technology, if anyone's familiar with it, basically is just large organizations or large groups of people creating something and just giving it to the world and saying, do what you want with it. So in a personal project, if there's something that interests you, if there's a company that you want to work at, if there's, you know, something that you want to do, then you can leverage all these tools and you can teach them to yourself. Like, I'm not trying to make it seem as if the CS curriculum isn't important. It definitely is, but they couldn't teach you everything if they wanted to. So personal projects are a great way for you to figure something out that you want to do and then go through the process of learning it. So you can tell a company or you could tell a graduate school, hey, I know how to do this thing. Here's an example of me knowing how to do this thing. You can put that on your resume, even if you did it in a weekend, even if it's not done. You can go ahead and include that so that people know I have a formal background. So then hackathons. Okay, you're at NIHACS. You might not know what a hackathon is. I know Harold just gave a very brief, I don't even know what Harold is. Harold just gave a very brief description of what a hackathon is, but it's essentially a 24 to 36 hour innovation marathon. And the reason why it's so valuable in computer science is when you're at these events, it's a competition, but not in the classic sense. It's almost as if you wanted to do a personal project, you could do it over the weekend. With a group of 5 people, you could build up your skills, build up your knowledge. And with the sponsors that we have that come out to these events, you could almost have a question about something like Google Cloud Platform, which is like a suite of tools that you can use to do all kinds of things, host your website and whatnot. And you could ask someone from Google, hey, how do I host a website on your platform? And they can help you. That's a really unique interaction. And it's a way that you could learn much faster and much better almost, because you're learning it directly from people that know it, or you're working in a group to learn it. So definitely, okay. I'm gonna take my mask off. Everyone 6 feet away. I could not breathe. All right, so yeah, hackathons, they're great. NetHacks, great place to start. I would definitely recommend the NetHacks hackathon for anyone who has never done one before. The team is amazing. Everyone behind it is amazing. And it's just a great group of people that put it on, and it really shows through in the product of what you end up attending, because they work to get the best sponsors. They work to provide a great environment for people to hack and people to learn. And really, even if you have no background in programming, you could go to a hackathon, you could learn something. And even if you think, oh, I'm just going to throw this away after the weekend, that's fine. Everything you're getting out of it isn't the project itself, it's everything you learn along the way. So, and employers love it. So definitely give it a try. Internships, this will definitely probably get addressed a lot more next week, but internships are a way for you to figure out if you really like this and you really want to do this as a career. So really consider, especially since we have a lot of freshmen and sophomores, you can do an internship. A lot of people have this conception that, oh, internships are something that you do your senior year. Internships are something that I do later on. And if you are later on in your degree, that's totally fine, but you can do them at any moment. So if you're a freshman and you want to decide, hey, do I like computer science that much? Do I want to continue pursuing this? I don't know what it's going to be like when I actually start doing this. You could go get an internship. You really could. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to do that later, but you really could. It's an amazing opportunity to get a sneak peek into the industry, and real world experience is always going to teach you more of what's actually happening out there than what you'll probably learn in the classroom, right? Like you learn sorting algorithms in some of your classes at UCF, like how to sort a list. That's valuable, but how many companies do you think need someone to write and do sorting algorithms? Probably not that many. There's a lot more companies that need people that know some upcoming technologies, some interesting tools and frameworks, and they'll give you a job for that tomorrow. Like you just heard Ryan talk about it. Front end, React, things like that. That is such a hot technology. So many people want people that know that. So internships, great way to learn it. Undergraduate research. This is if you think that you might be interested in academia. As an undergraduate, you can do that. You can reach out to professors, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to tell you the specific way to get involved with research. But it is essentially you working with either a lab or with a professor at UCF and just learning more about their research, helping them with their research, assisting them. And there's a lot of different labs at UCF that perform research. Basically, we're a research institution, so that's a big part of it. If there's a professor where you're taking their class and you say, hey, I really like this person, or hey, this person seems like he probably does some interesting stuff, maybe he teaches on a topic that you like, go ahead and approach them and be like, hey, I like this, do you have any positions open in your research lab? Is there availability that I could work with you in any capacity? It's really hard to read a research paper when you're a freshman. I couldn't read a research paper right now for the most part. And there's graduate students that struggle with it as well. It's like they're very dense and very hard to read. But if you could download some of a professor that maybe you're interested in what they do, their work, and just try to read through it, that would be something great that you could bring up. Maybe you could bring up a point about, hey, I didn't understand all of it, but I really found it interesting how you did X, Y, Z. So undergraduate research is just a great way, especially if you're considering further academia or graduate school, to get some more information. Clubs, obviously, are an amazing way and a great way to build up your resume, get some leadership positions on there, get some experience in leadership if that's something that you think you'll be interested in. So there are a lot of amazing clubs at UCF. I'm not going to try to list all of them off. Hack UCF is here, Night Hacks, ACM, ACMW, SWE, SHEB. I'm missing a million, AI at UCF, but you get the point. There's a lot of opportunities to get involved. As freshmen and sophomores, great time to get involved in all these different clubs, all these different events. Go out to some of their general body meetings. Figure out, hey, is this something that's going to help me in my career? Is this something where some of the people in this club have done things that I want to do? Is this something where these people not necessarily inspire you, but have been places that you would like to get to, and you think surrounding yourself with those people will help you get to those places? That's really a great way to get ahead in computer science. Like, just think about it. There's a lot of people from NightHack specifically, right, that end up working at XYZ companies. I don't think that that is a coincidence. I think it's a result of when you're surrounded by a bunch of people that work really hard. They all motivate other people to work hard. That's why I really love this club. I think it's one of the best clubs that you see because everyone motivates each other and no one is afraid to share information and knowledge. And it's the same environment at other clubs. It's the same environment at other organizations at UCF. So it's a great opportunity. to get ahead and to learn more. Helpful places to check out. This is more specifically for just learning how to code. You have Data Camp, Code Academy, MIT OpenCourseWare, which is really cool. MIT basically takes all their classes and says, hey, do you want to watch these and like do the assignments? Really great way to learn. Udemy, but that costs money. Sometimes you can get some courses for cheap that are pretty good. LinkedIn Learning, Full Stack Open, the Odin Project. These are more for web development. YouTube tutorials are just amazing. And of course, coming out to your NIHEX general body meetings. Just so everyone understands too, this isn't really like how a classic workshop works for us. Normally, we won't be in the PowerPoint the whole time. Then we'll go and we'll actually do some programming, some coding, like we'll build a website during the workshop and everyone can like try to replicate that at home or try to do the same thing. This is more of a career development one. But like, just like Avery had said before, we have a bunch more lined up that are both career development and more technical. Okay, so what can I do with computer science? This is a really hard question because you can do a lot of stuff with a degree in computer science. There are many different options: front end, back end, full stack, machine learning, research, UI and UX design, product, cybersecurity. Probably some of these words don't make sense to some of you. So luckily, I've created slides for every single one of them. I'll try to give a brief 10,000-foot overview of all these different career paths to you, and maybe throw out some ideas of things that you could do with them to get ahead. Because how many of these tools have you not seen in your classes, right? JavaScript, React, Vue, Python, Django, Node, PyTorch, Julia, R. So many people want people to know these things. So you could go learn them. It's a very democratized major that we're in. The tools are available to us. We just have to take advantage of them. So front end, you could think of this as the part of the application that you can see. So on a website, the part that you actually interact with. When it comes to a website like Google or Facebook, you could only imagine how hard it is to manage these massive UIs. It's not easy. They're very complicated. So technologies like React, Vue, and Angular, which I've said multiple times, you could essentially think of these as frameworks that make it easier to manage these really complex things that are happening. And they also work closely with designers, because like if you let a group of engineers design a website, I can guarantee you it probably won't look like the best thing ever. It's really nice to have people with a design focus, or people that understand user experience and how people are actually going to interact with this to help with the process. And also front-end engineering has a lot of really unique challenges and problems that you get to experience, like things that you just don't think about. So yeah, it's very, very awesome. And the tools that you use for front-end can also be used for things like mobile development, using other frameworks like React Native. So back-end development, it deals less with what people see, more of the logical side of how things happen. So when you think about back-end, you can think of it more as a database that things get stored in, a server that people are accessing. It's a lot harder for me to explain it in a non-technical way, but essentially think of it as all of the things that you don't see about a website. That's back-end engineering, and it includes tools like Java or Python. You could build backends on a lot of different frameworks, and yeah, it's a really interesting field, and it also is kind of intersects with some other fields of computer science. Like, I don't know if anyone's heard of big data, machine learning. A lot of these will run on the back end part of your application, so you interact with those a little bit. Full stack, it's kind of like everything. It's basically take those two things, combine them, and you can build a lot of really cool stuff. So personally, I really like full stack development. It involves you going on the front end, handling how your application is going to be presented to people, and then also stepping into the back end and saying, okay, here's what the application is going to do, some of the logic behind how we're going to perform certain operations. And it also applies to different fields, right? So if you have an iOS app, if you have an Android app, if you have a website, all of those things involve two components, the part you see and the part you don't. So the full stack aspect of things is really valuable because it lets you kind of understand how the whole thing is working together. And I just realized that there's a Zoom chat. Okay, very cool. So machine learning and AI, I'm not going to pretend like I could give the best presentation on this. I just want to reiterate, I am a senior in computer science. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know. So machine learning and AI is something that I haven't touched on as much, but definitely many different applications, including sentiment analysis, image recognition. If you want to get involved with it, a mathematical programming language is really valuable because a lot of math goes into these machine learning algorithms. Languages like PyTorch, or might be more of a library. If you want to look into that, it's super valuable. It is extremely powerful. Like when you talk about things like, I don't want to get too technical, but like making a computer be able to recognize an image. You can do using certain libraries and things, that's 20 lines of code that you're actually able to use to do something that is that cool. I went to an AI UCF meeting one time, and that was their first meeting, is showing you, hey, we can recognize digits with 15 lines of code. Super powerful stuff that is just available to you because this is open source technology. They just hand it to you and they say, build personal projects with it. We just want to see people learn this because it'll help us develop in the future, hire in the future. It's really valuable. AI at UCF, if people don't know, that's the Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence Club at UCF. They're awesome. They're a great group of people. And if you ever want to attend their meetings, they always do different kinds of topics in machine learning and artificial intelligence. All right, so research. This is another field. I'm not going to pretend like I'm in graduate school or I'm doing my PhD and I can tell you this is the pathway to research. Next week, there will be more information on how to get into research. But essentially, it encompasses a very wide range of computer science. Doing undergraduate research for the lab allows you to get a really good idea of what it would look like if I wanted to continue my education in this field. So if I wanted to do a master's degree in computer science and I wanted to focus on bioinformatics, doing some undergraduate research will let you know, okay, here's maybe what that would look like for me. Here's maybe the tools I would be interfacing with. Here's maybe the things I would be learning. So if you want to explore that career path, undergraduate research is great. And I know I talked about internships briefly before, but there are the equivalent of internships on the research side from places like the National Science Foundation. They provide grants to students to basically perform research. You can go to other universities, you can research with their professors, you could research here. So a lot of amazing opportunities out there. And I'll just briefly show this. I don't think that link is open. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to open it. Okay, these are all the different research labs at UCF that you could get involved with in a lot of different areas. So when I say that there are pathways in computer science, there are pathways in computer science. You can do a lot of stuff of what you're studying in your class. And when I say I'm not going to focus on the CS curriculum, this is why. There are so many different things that you could do, so many different things you could be learning. What you do in your class is just going to set you up to go request that live transcription enable. Okay, what you do in your class and is just going to set you up to be able to go outside and apply that to anything that you want or anything that interests you. So now let's see if I can open the slides again. Okay, UI and UX. This is a field that is less programming and more designing how things are going to work for the user. Tools like Figma, Sketch, the Adobe suite of tools, all those are really good to learn. And honestly, I can't remember who it was, someone in the club had said this in a previous presentation. They call the people that know how to design and code unicorns because they're so rare. If you are able to know the design side of things and you can have an acumen for here's how this thing would give the user the best experience, it'll allow you to have to iterate less times, provide a better product the first time. And it's really something that you should always be thinking about. Like, what is the end user's experience going to be? So experience of the user is very important. Key topics, accessibility, usability, brand perception. And, even in your personal projects, like, it's really funny when you see someone try to use the thing that you did and they just have no idea what's going on. And you're like, oh, but it was so clear. It was so simple. That's all UI and UX. Just understanding what's the easiest way to get the user from point A to point B. Okay, so product. This is something that you probably won't interface with as much in classes, but is such a big part of the computer science industry specifically, is the idea of like product management. It isn't necessarily you sitting down and going through the how this thing is going to work. It's more the what and why. So you could think of it as at Microsoft, right? They have Teams, Excel, PowerPoint, GitHub, LinkedIn. Project managers are the ones who take the team, get them together, and figure out what are we doing, why are we doing it, and what kind of business impact is this going to deliver for the company. They're less involved with how are we going to architect the solution, how is it going to work, how are we going to, you know, be able to, I don't know, random technical problem, insert here, you know, how are we going to be able to do X, Y, Z? More, why are we doing it? What are we trying to accomplish with it? Did we accomplish it? What do we need to do now? So more of that side of things. Product management, what happens to be a really cool thing. I think we've done workshops on it in the past, but it's harder to get, I don't want to say exposure. But yeah, it's harder to get exposure to it in your CS career. There's only a handful of classes where you would really get the chance to manage a project. So definitely internships are an amazing way to get a look into what project management would look like. Cybersecurity. You'd ask Ryan more about this because I'm going to give you, like, I couldn't even tell you what would be the best. Apparently JavaScript is really good for cybersecurity. It's more in line with the security of applications, how to make sure no one malicious is trying to access your application. It involves more of the classic sense of the word hacking, as in, can people get into my application that shouldn't? And HackUCF is an amazing club to join if you'd like to learn more. And it's a very important piece of the puzzle, obviously, because our lives surround around technology, being able to secure technology and make sure that all of our information is safe and secure. You know, you hear about data leaks and break-ins and stuff like that, where people get access to all kinds of people's information. It's a very important piece of computer science. So I just gave you a long spiel about a ton of different things that you could do. How do I find what I'd like to do in order to get ahead in computer science? With all these options, you could just sit there and think about what I want to do for days and weeks and never do anything. I know that was what I did, like my freshman year. I was like, oh, maybe I'll build a website, but I don't want to get pigeonholed because I don't necessarily know if I want to do web development. Meanwhile, I could have done anything, literally anything, and I would have been further along than where I was. So just pick something. Just pick anything that's remotely interesting to you and just do it if you're early on. And if you're further on and you've already experienced a couple things, maybe do some introspection and say like, hey, did any of those things really appeal to me? Did I really like any of those things? And if you didn't, there's clearly a lot more paths that you could go down. So that's, I mean, just finding out what you like and what's going to be the area that you maybe want to put more work in. And it doesn't have to be a final decision. You could go back and go a different direction. I have no idea what I want to do. And I'm sure a lot of people here don't, that might be further along in the major. So definitely, like, getting ahead is just getting started. How would I get a job? So this is a problem, right? Because I said freshmen could do internships, but if you're a freshman and you've ever applied to an internship, it's really hard. Not necessarily really hard, it's really kind of taxing, because a lot of the times you could apply to a lot of things and you could get rejected. You get a lot of no's before you get a yes. And it feels like you can't get ahead because people don't want to give you an opportunity as a freshman. But luckily, it's 2 simple steps to get a job. See, Rob was about to leave and Rob just came back in the class. First, you get the interview and then you pass the interview. I said they were simple. I did not say that they were easy. They can be difficult. And the getting the interview part can be a lot more mentally taxing than the passing the interview part, surprisingly, even though computer science interviews can be pretty difficult sometimes. I don't want to scare anyone. Like, it's just something that you prepare for, but the getting the interview part, it's just hard to deal with the rejection because you get rejected a lot. You send out applications and people say no, but you just have to keep doing it. And you just have to keep going until someone says yes. It can oftentimes be one of the hardest parts. And like, you get rejected from a company and you're like, oh, like, is this like the right thing for me to do? You know, or you don't pass an interview and you're like, damn, like, and it really does stifle your progress. And it can be really hard to deal with at times, but the important part is definitely to just do the things that you can do and just keep applying. There's a saying that's because there's a lot of luck involved in the process. And there's a saying that the harder I work, the luckier I seem to become. I think that's very true when it comes to applications, right? The harder you work at, adding the personal projects and, attending the conferences and doing the networking, talking to people, hopping on LinkedIn. If you see someone that works at a company that maybe you're interested in saying, hey, would you want to talk? These are all things where sometimes you won't see an immediate impact from them and it'll feel like you're just throwing them out into a void. But I can guarantee you, everyone who I've personally seen that like works hard and does those things just seems to reach the point that they want to reach or get very close to it. And I really think that there's more than just a correlation there. I don't think that it's valuable to think of it as, oh, I'm just doing this and maybe it's for nothing. Just get the interview. Just keep going until you can get to that point where then I can just have to worry about passing it, figuring out the technical parts of it later or whatnot. But just don't get discouraged during the process before you ever even get there. What's up, Harold?
Yeah, question extending off of that, if you don't mind, like repeating this info. So yeah, we need to apply to a bunch of different things, and it can be very taxing to just apply to so many places, and we just don't hear anything back. Like, how would you go about not getting discouraged after applying so much and just not being able to not hearing back from a lot?
Yeah. So Harold's question was for the Zoom. How do you not get discouraged after not hearing back from so many places? This once again comes back to the point where I am a CS major like the rest of you, and I get very discouraged a lot when I apply to a bunch of places and I don't hear anything back. But honestly, when you realize that it's just a numbers game, it's almost as if like if I were to write a cover letter for everything I applied to, I'd probably write 200 cover letters my freshman year, when I was just sending out applications like that. And it isn't necessarily like I got to the point where once you get rejected enough times, you're like, okay, and it stops hurting as much. You know what I mean? Because you're like, okay, well, I'm probably going to get rejected, a lot of times before I get to the point where they're actually going to give me the interview. And it also is important to remember, because we have a lot of freshmen and sophomores here, your first internship doesn't have to be the place that you're going to work at for the rest of your life. It's a peek into the industry. It's not you jumping in head first and that's what I'm going to do. So just having that on your resume is so valuable and puts you ahead of so many other people that might not have it. And especially if you're like a senior or a junior and you haven't done an internship yet, most internships allow you to get a job within, I think, 3 or 6 months. After 2, you can continue to do it. Or if you already have experience, the full-time process is very similar to the internship process when it comes to applying. It's just a numbers game. And you just have to be willing to play that numbers game and keep working at it. So these are some of the best places that I've found to look for opportunities. Handshake, LinkedIn. You could literally just search for GitHub, whatever semester internships. And it's similar for full-time employees because if you're a new grad, they hire them in certain ways. Also important thing to point out here, 2 important things. One, the hiring process is about a year in advance for a lot of companies. So like right now is right around the time they would be hiring for next summer. And same thing with new grads. Like right now is when they're hiring people for around that time. So, if like right now would be a great time to start sending out applications if you're looking for, positions and whatnot. And also it can be kind of this game where you're like, oh, I need that thing next week. Like I need to finish this project and I need to put it on my resume and then I'll send it out everywhere and it'll all be great. It really is a numbers game in the sense of like, unless that's gonna, you're gonna become the president next week or something crazy is gonna happen next week and it's not gonna change the world. And just applying and going through the process of it is almost better than not doing it and missing the period. What's up?
So what are some things that freshmen like need to put on their resume? Like I have very little experience and like pretty much experience in long term experience. So what are some things that put on my resume?
Yeah. So as a freshman, this is really where like, and you could get into like the semantics of like, I know some people say don't put your high school stuff in your resume. When I got here, I didn't have anything else to put. So that was definitely on my resume. But like personal projects are so valuable for freshmen because you can literally tell a company, hey, I don't have, an internship or formal experience and I haven't taken a lot of classes, but on the weekend, I built this whole application by myself, or I went to a hackathon. And at the hackathon, I worked with a team of 5 people and we built a web application using technologies that your company uses. Like, that's something that you can do really quickly and get experience really quickly. And people, I think, sometimes think of personal projects as like, oh, I need to work on this over 2-3 months and then I can put it on a resume or I can do something with it. I mean, personally, I have things on my resume that I didn't finish. I have hackathon projects that I did in 24 hours that are still like, so don't think of it as something where I had to do this grandiose thing or grandiose in order to put this on there. Literally, it could be something that you put together and you worked on, and that's still going to give you leverage over someone else that didn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's still something that you learn outside of the classroom that's going to set you apart. So I would definitely recommend, personal projects, hackathons, getting involved with clubs, with leadership positions, or if you can't get a leadership position, just working with a team so you could put that as experience. And yeah, just like things of that nature, if that helps. So,
yeah, I did want to add, I think we'll cover this later on, but I did want to say that like all this stuff is a little daunting, but like there's no specific timeline you have to follow. And I think as a freshman, at least for me, like when I'm starting, the professional search, like you don't need to put pressure to like apply, and like have to know everything, learn to interviews, whatever. Because I think what Dylan is also saying is that you should be learning all these concepts, and you should be grasping it and like applying it in your own time in order to achieve these internships. So I mean, it's up to you if you want to like bang it out and just like get as many projects as you want. But I definitely think for freshmen, especially your first semester, should just learning code and like learning what it is, especially if you have prior experience. Because let's say you do get into like I don't know if you can learn like algorithms and all that stuff from it. Like you should be learning and applying that.
Yeah, it's not just doing a project for the sake of doing a project, and like, there is a certain amount of learning that goes in, like, that is involved with it, and that you're going to be able to take away with you. So definitely, like Avery's totally right. Like, don't stress yourself out, because it can be really taxing on your mental health, to be totally honest. If you just decide to sit down and send out applications, I've experienced that, and a lot of other people can tell you too. Like, it really isn't worth it. You have plenty of time. I was just more saying it in the terms of, as a freshman or sophomore, you can. You don't have to. It is not a requirement. What's up, Kron? Oh, don't worry, Kron. Now we can move on to the next slide. How do you pass the interview? So for people who are unfamiliar, technical interviews, or just interviews within the field of computer science in general, tend to follow kind of a pattern where there's a behavioral section of it, and then there's a technical section of it. Different companies weigh those different sections differently, but both are always normally taken into account. Like, very rarely will you see someone just ask you a technical question. That's the only way that they're going to gauge you, because once again, this is a collaborative process that you go through when you're doing computer science or working in a job like that. But the behavioral portion normally would be less difficult to prepare for, since there's certain questions that that they might ask. Just knowing your resume really well can be super helpful, so that you can speak to the different things that you did. But when it comes to the technical portion, that's the part that can be a little bit more difficult. So I'll hop over to the next slide here. Interviews on the technical portion, and another thing to point out too, not every company has a technical portion. I've done a lot of interviews like in the Orlando area where they won't ask you a technical question. They'll ask you behavioral questions. They'll ask you about yourself, and especially as a freshman or a sophomore, a lot of companies will not ask you really difficult data structure questions because they don't expect you to know them. So I know, like at Microsoft, for example, sophomores tend to get questions that are less difficult than people that are further along, at least from my experience. So they are understanding of where you are as your class standing and what you should know, and they're not just gonna arbitrarily ask you something extremely difficult. To give some more background on like what they'll ask you about, it's a lot of different areas of computer science that they might ask you to pull from. So your data structures and algorithms class is like, they'll teach you some of the different ways that you could solve problems in computer science. It's hard for me to explain this in a non-technical way, but essentially they'll ask you to do some kind of problem, maybe on a whiteboard, or maybe just talk through it, or maybe to do it on a piece of paper. And they'll essentially try to give you some help if you ever get caught up, or there's a period of time where you can't figure out what the next step that you should take in the problem is or something. So just like, a programmatic problem. And I link these two things here because this is a tool called LeetCode. You'll probably hear about it more. And if you're a senior or a junior, you've probably heard about it already. Essentially what it is, and if you're a freshman or a sophomore and you go onto this website, you try one of these problems and you absolutely can't do it, trust me, everyone has been there before. It's really, really difficult. And the real crux of it all is that it's just a skill that you need to build up. It's a muscle that you need to exercise and practice with. And just doing, trying to do problems or looking up solutions to problems and trying to understand how they did it can be super valuable, because then when you go into the technical portion of an interview and they ask you about a data structure or an algorithm, you could remember what you did on a platform like LeetCode or what you studied about data structures and algorithms, and you can be able to, perform and give them an answer that's as close to optimal as we can hope for. But definitely, this is a lot of information. I don't mean to scare the crap out of anybody. I know this was an introduction to computer science, but we've gone through a lot of computer science, in the past however many minutes. But really, this is a 10,000-foot overview, and it isn't meant to say you need to go out and get ahead in computer science tomorrow. Like what Avery said was really valuable, because I don't want anyone to think that. It's just resources that you could take advantage of, information that could be helpful as you go through your career at UCF, no matter where you are, freshman, sophomore, senior, junior, graduate student. I don't know if we have any PhD students in here right now, maybe, but just stuff that is very valuable to know. But once again, always prioritize your mental health. Getting ahead in computer science is not worth you being really sad or not wanting to get ahead in computer science anymore because you hate the major and you don't want to be a computer science major anymore, or you don't even want to do it anymore. So definitely that was a brief introduction to computer science. Any questions? Harold?
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about some of the questions in chat, because the chat has a couple of questions.
Okay.
So one of them was, this one will be a little bit harder to answer. How does being a computer engineering major play a role when thinking of working in cybersecurity and defense?
Okay. So you asked about cybersecurity and defense. Ryan is here. Ryan, do you maybe want to field this question?
Say computer engineer, right?
Yeah.
Computer engineering can kind of focus on how systems are, underlying systems are built and put together.
I'm sorry, do you mind going up?
Yes. So computer engineering kind of focusing on how components are built and how the underlying systems are kind of put together and how they work. For cybersecurity, you can focus on kind of how to make these physical hardware components talk to each other in kind of a secure way, make sure that no one can kind of get in the middle of any, I guess, electrical loops. I'm not an engineering person, so, but yeah, it's kind of designing secure hardware, making sure no one can kind of just jump into the hardware and make it do things it's not supposed to. That's essentially all cybersecurity is making sure that people don't use the hardware or software in a way it was not meant to be used to get things that they shouldn't have. So that you kind of fine.
Great. Clap it up for Ryan. I just put him on the spot and he gave a great answer. Thank you, Ryan. So hopefully that was a good answer. Harold, anything else?
Two other quick questions. So one was it's from Omar. Their question was, how was interning at Microsoft?
So I've been to the campus one time, and the rest has been virtual. It was really cool. I really liked the experience. Yeah, I mean, I was working on this Microsoft Store team, basically, for anyone that's interested. And it was really fun. I mean, just getting to work at large companies is cool. Because like what they said in the video, I don't think there's many fields that give you as much impact as you can get in like a field like computer science. And you really see it when you're working at a company and you see the scale of some of these systems and how many people must be using it. Like they're in Microsoft Store, for example, I think that it was like some of their APIs get hit like 10 billion times like a day or something. You know what I mean? An API being like how they're getting information or things like that. So that's really cool, right? Like I personally thought it was pretty cool. Just getting to see systems that get that much use or getting to take part in that kind of stuff is really cool. Yeah, so that's my answer. Anything else, Harold?
Yeah, there's two more, but I'll ask one more before we get into like some in-person questions. I'm sure someone will be talking to. One was personal projects with the team would be beneficial too, right?
Personal projects with the team would be almost more beneficial, I would say, because then you get to learn. I guess I'll look at the Zoom instead of the in-person. Then you get to learn about like teamwork and build up all those other skills, because that's one of the things that I feel like can be really difficult about computer science is like some people know so much, but it's really hard for them to give that information to other people. And like in an environment like Night Hacks, this can be a great place for you to do that. You know, practice giving information to each other or learning from others. There's kind of a stereotype in computer science that, you know, like it's really intimidating and people don't want to tell you things, or everyone wants to be a know-it-all and super smart. But I can guarantee you, you know, there are many great people in this major and that just want to help and just want to teach you things. So definitely like working in a group on a personal project is probably even more valuable than doing it by yourself. Does anyone in person have a question? Okay, right there first.
How much of a commitment would it be for, like, how many hours would you have to put for an internship or work?
So normally if it's a summer internship, the expectation is normally full-time for about 12 weeks. So for 12 weeks over the summer, you would be working at a place and you know they would be paying you or whatever, and you would be integrating with a team at that company, and you would just be doing like whatever, maybe a project, or maybe it's more you're working on like active stuff that they're doing. But it would essentially be like a 12-week commitment. And if it was over the summer, it's normally full-time. But I know within the Orlando area, there's a lot of people that hire part-time during the fall and spring semesters that have opportunities like that for people. If they just want to be able to put in like 20 hours, they have it on the side of their classes and whatnot. I know we have like the CWET program from Lockheed Martin. It's like a college work experience program. I know there's a lot of other companies in the area that are always hiring. It's really good to check out Handshake and stuff for that. But normally it would be like a full-time over the summer, part-time during the semester kind of commitment.
Type stuff, how much work is this?
Oh, for undergraduate research?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That definitely depends on the lab and what you're doing. I have very limited experience in undergraduate research. The most that, like, just as an example of how much it can range from, like, I did an undergraduate research opportunity my freshman year that I was really only involved with it for maybe a month, and it was maybe I'm just guessing here, but probably like 20 hours of work in total, where like we were making notebooks for like 7th grade classes in Orange County, like programming notebooks. But it really just totally depends, because you could also be integrated with a lab and it could be a commitment of 5 to 10 hours a week. But I mean, I would assume that it would definitely be capped at like a commitment of 20 hours, and they'll work with you with your schedule normally, from my understanding.
So, give an example of the hardest technical question and the easiest technical question.
So I mean, for me, like I could just speak from my own personal experience. Like the hardest technical question I've ever got was actually a question that we had on an exam in CS2. So it was just convenient. But it was, I couldn't even tell you what it was today. It had to do with binary trees. It doesn't matter if you don't know what that is. I know there's a lot of freshmen in software that might have not have gotten to those kind of classes yet. But and the easiest technical question was one that someone asked me FizzBuzz one time, which was kind of, if anyone doesn't know what FizzBuzz is, it's like a really common question that they'll ask in programming. This is actually a good example of what a technical question would look like. It would say, like, if you have like if you had a list of numbers, every time you see a number divisible by 3, say fizz. Every time you see a number divisible by 5, say buzz. And then every time you see a number divisible by both, say FizzBuzz. So if you want some homework assignments, you can take that home with you. But yeah, that's like for me personally, I guess it probably differs for just depending, like it's really arbitrary, the kind of questions that they'll pick, and it's just a very wide range of things that they can pull from.
How much time do you get?
In a normal environment, it depends on the difficulty of the question, I believe. But normally they'll give you at least 30 minutes. And if they don't want to see you fail, and if anything, you don't have to arrive at like the perfect solution. It's really more something where they want to see how you think about the problem more than whatever solution that you arrive at. So people have definitely blown the question completely open, but they thought about it in the right way and they approached it in the right way. So you definitely don't have to like be concerned that, oh, if I don't get the perfect answer right, like it's a lot more about just the process of how you think about things, and they just want to see you think through a technical problem. What's up? Yeah, so when it comes to like internships are opportunities for you to learn. Like intern work should not be mission critical to the company if it's a good company, because that would be an issue. Literally, in a lot of places, they'll have opportunities for you to just take days to just learn things. And it's very much an environment where like, you doing a personal project because you want to get an internship or something is an opportunity for you to learn about it, and also an opportunity for you to show the company, I have an interest in learning this. And when you're an intern, the expectation is that you won't know everything, and they'll give you the adequate resources and tools to learn it as you go. So internships are a great way to learn about these different technologies and fields. But it's absolutely not the expectation that you'll show up day one and be ready to contribute like a full-time employee. Definitely not.
Add on to what you're saying, one of the questions earlier. A lot of companies like Google and Microsoft, like even like Deloitte, they offer internships that are kind of directed towards freshmen and sophomores, because they know that at that stage you don't necessarily know a lot of the information that like a junior or senior would, but they want to give you the opportunity to come and learn about that stuff while actually applying to learn it.
Yeah. Yeah, for the Zoom, what Ryan said was at large companies, a lot of the time they have internship programs that their only purpose is for you to learn. So I think a couple examples of those specifically for freshmen and sophomores are things like Google Step, Facebook University. I believe Uber has an equivalent of that. Those are all programs that literally your code is not going to production in these places. They're designed for you to come and learn and work in a team on a project. Microsoft has Microsoft Explorer, and it's just focused on learning, because they really want to find good talent early, and they care if you can learn and you can build good solutions to problems, or if you're just interested in learning how to do that. So any other questions from the in-person?
So we are getting close to the end of the room reservation, but two quick questions from the Zoom chat is one is any suggestions for where to start if we want to get to front end, and the other is how do we get involved with personal projects with different people?
So if you want to get involved with personal projects with a group of people, we have a projects group. We have what is it? Projects.
Yeah, the projects program applications are due on Monday. Go on the link tree, and that's to get put on our projects team. And there's of course the hackathons, Shell Hacks next weekend, and then Night Hacks in November 12th to 14th.
Yeah.
And getting into front.
So I'm gonna do that one, and then we'll go to you. Okay, so getting into front end. One of the things about I think for front end development, it's really a great thing to learn through kind of doing. There's a lot of really useful courses out there on, I mean, Udemy. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend Udemy first, because there's a lot of free resources before you pay for it. But if you're interested in learning about front end, definitely HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Codecademy has a great course on JavaScript. That's how I learned JavaScript. HTML and CSS is like, I don't even know if I know HTML and CSS. It's just something where like you look up the tags enough, or you look it up enough times, and eventually you'll get a little bit more familiar with it. But if you want a more formal background in it, I think there's definitely courses out there. I'm not sure if there's one on Codecademy or what the best one would be, if anyone has any recommendations, but some of the links that I had on like the helpful links section would be good. YouTube as well. Karan says YouTube. Firebase?
Yeah, on YouTube.
Oh,
Fireship, sorry.
Okay, Fireship on YouTube is another good recommendation for the Zoom. What's up?
Oh, I was just wondering, so does NiceHack have its own hackathon team, or how do they?
Okay, so we invite, in a non-COVID world, 600 people here, a bunch of sponsors give us some money, and we take all of engineering, all of HEC, and we fill it full of people, and they build projects all weekend. our last virtual hackathon, I think, had 50+ project submissions, and we host that whole event. We bring the judges together and they judge all the projects. Not judge it for, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, more like judge it like, oh, well, this, this is an interesting use of whatever technology. We provide food, provide sleeping arrangements to the best of our ability. Caffeine, as much caffeine as you want, within a healthy, reasonable amount. So yeah, we do all of those things. Like, we basically hold the event and get these sponsors and whatnot to come here and make the initial contact with these sponsors and try to do our best to just, make a really good event and just have a bunch of people come out. A lot of colleges do that. Basically, every college in Florida has their own version of a hackathon that they host every year, and they have an organization on campus that plans it.
So for show next, do you guys have any set for people who aren't going?
For show hacks?
Yeah.
Okay, so for show hacks, Harold.
Yeah, I think I'll take this. So for hackathons, it's not really a thing where like university sends people to go compete and win like national competitions. It's more just every university has their own hackathon, and anyone is welcome to participate, make their own project, and those individual teams can win prizes. So like, you can go with a team of 3 people, or you can find your team while you're there, and you can win first place. If you have a good enough project, you can win first place. So it's not like you're going through a university or like we're sending people there. It's just open to anyone in the country, or actually the world even, are usually welcome at all hackathons if they're affiliated with MLH, which is like the overseeing organization for hackathons.
Also, for night hacks, if you guys don't know how to code or like just getting into it, it's fine. We're actually gonna have like some things like we do for beginners, like beginners workshop. And also, we're currently like planning out kind of the prize track, which will do our beginners. So like, for example, if you can't fully pull a project, it's okay. We're gonna kind of try to like figure out the type of rubric so we can sort of reward you guys for your effort and maybe your ideas.
Thank you. Harold? Do you have a question?
Anyway, for the freshmen, sophomores, all the B programs are open right now. FBU is open, everything open. So apply. I think it's rolling, right? For FBU. I don't know, but I heard that the earlier you apply, the easier to get it. So Facebook or something. So.
Yeah, so Facebook University, which is like the freshman one, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a freshman, there's a specific program. It's like internships that are meant for you. That's like, I think Google calls it STEP. I don't know what Microsoft calls it, but Explore. Microsoft Explore. That's the name of like the freshman, sophomore, or maybe freshman internship program that Microsoft does. I hope, can the Zoom chat hear me? I really hope they can.
Zoom chat. Speak up.
Yeah, Google STEP, Microsoft Explorer, Facebook University. Twitter has one. Yeah. So if you're a freshman, there are internships that are meant for you. Also, we have time for like one last question.
Okay. Just to check really quickly, anyone in the Zoom chat, did you hear what was just talked about? Take your silence as a yes. Does anyone else have a final question?
Okay, sorry. So what I was saying was basically that Facebook, Microsoft, Twitter, and Google have their own internship programs that are meant for freshmen, sophomores. So like, if you're a freshman or sophomore, you can apply to these specific programs. So like, they know that you're less experienced, and they just like, they see that you're a freshman, sophomore. So like I said, Google calls it STEP, Microsoft calls it Explore, Facebook calls it Facebook University. And I think that, and those are what I know off the top of my head. Sorry.
No one on the Zoom saw how quickly Harold ran up here to tell everyone. All right, no more questions? Everyone good?
You don't have time for any more questions.
Okay, well, good. Oh,
Ryan.
If anyone wants to add personal projects to resume, definitely come to me about what I talked about earlier with the infrastructure. We're doing Vue.js. So if you want to learn Vue and front end, or you want to learn back end, not traditional back end and PowerShell, come talk to me. I'll be here after the questions.
So if the Zoom chat just missed that, Ryan, who presented at the beginning of this meeting, and you can see the recording later on how to contact him, you can reach out to him to work on the HackUCF infrastructure if you want to do a project. Okay, well, Dylan just left the vicinity. So yeah, thanks to Dylan. Everyone give Dylan a round of applause. That was an amazing presentation. You can find Dylan at Dylan Skelly at nights.ucf.edu or dylanskelly.me. That's his own little personal website, which you might want to look into having for yourself, your own little personal website. So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out to our first workshop of the semester. What happened to this? Okay. Please, if you can, oh, wow, the Zoom is glitching. It's so bad right now. Okay. Please, okay, so if you can, please go to nighthacks.org/feedback. If you have feedback on this presentation, I would put it in the Zoom. If anyone's on the Zoom, can you just put https://nighthacks.org/feedback, because it's not letting me on this computer right now. So yeah, so please give us some feedback at nighthacks.org/feedback. Thank you guys so much for coming. Yeah, someone can please put that in the Zoom chat. And that is all. Thank you guys so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you at future events.